So last week we ended up talking about the conflicts I was feeling as I try to move through my business life, my personal life, my romantic life. And some of you agreed. Some of you were not impressed, not interested at all. That's totally fine. But some of you resonated very strongly with the conflict that you were feeling in different aspects of your life. And I almost reading the comments, realizing for myself, realized conflict might not be strong enough of a word, challenged, or like colliding. I think that I'm at moments feeling my identities collide in real time. And I know people have talked about it, but it's a new experience for me. So I wanted to discuss it more. Like, I feel my independence colliding with my identity as a daughter, right? Or I feel my Americanness colliding with my identity as perhaps a Christian or my identity as a community member at times, that like individualistic nature that is promoted, preached as one of the bastions of capitalism compared to the community member I want to be. I feel the teacher aspect, right? Public school teacher clashing with the informed consumer. Like, you are not valuing what I'm doing, but I value what I'm doing. And that is something I'm trying to explore a bit more, because I feel like some of the decisions that I am making have been emotional, and therefore they're not on a foundation that I can defend in real time or come back to or can apply to other aspects, because it wasn't thought out as much as it was just responded to. I hope that makes sense. But what I want to talk about this week is what that looks like in terms of other people's dreams. Like, how hard should I work for other people? Or better yet, whose dream do I want to work for? And there's this immediate thought of my own, right? I have these dreams, be it personal, financial, spiritual, physical. I have these goals I want to work towards. But how much, how often, how deeply should I participate in other people's dreams? And I don't mean, oh, I work at this job and I'm pursuing my boss's dream, which, yes, is a thing, but I have to work to make income. I'm not independently wealthy, or many people are not. So I'm not talking about the I have to do this in order to survive. I'm talking about the people who I choose to invest in, how much of their dream should become my own, how much of my effort, my money, my body should I give to someone else's dream? And this question, this thought has come up recently with my husband and with a few of my other friends' husbands, as we talk about how much we make our husband's dreams our own. Should I? Is it bad if I don't want to? Is it bad that I do want to? And I want to be very clear that I don't mean combined goals. I'm not talking about, oh, we jointly want to have a family, or we jointly want to go on more vacations, or we jointly want to give more of our lives to Christ or whatever religion you follow. I mean, no, not only am I not involved in that dream, like, hey, you want to run a marathon? That don't got nothing to do with me. You wake up, you eat that protein, you go for those 20-mile runs. I mean, the goals that require me. And I'll give you an example. Actually, let me back up. I mean, the goals that require me, more specifically, if the values are opposite. And I will give you an example where I feel those identities collide, where I feel like that value is being targeted a little bit. I have wanted to stop working since I was 22. That coincides with my very first big girl job. I wanted to stop working immediately, and partly because I wasn't doing well financially. I wasn't making ends meet. I was working 5, 6 part-time jobs to barely pay bills. I was single. I didn't have kids. All I had was a pup. And I was confused. Like, this cannot be the life that my mom told me that I was supposed to aim for the next 40 years. This cannot be what America told me was worth getting this bachelor's, spending all this money for this bachelor's. And I got my first big girl job. I was making $28,000 a year. And I thought it was going to change my life because for the first time, had paid time off. I wasn't bartending, getting off at 2 a.m., waking up at 5 a.m. to go lifeguard at the pool, leaving the pool to go to the hospital to be an assistant. I was just working one job. I had paid time off. I had leave. I had a development fund where I could take classes. I took Spanish. And at the end of the month, I could not afford to save deeply. I definitely wasn't putting anything to an IRA, 401k. And in my mind, I'm like, I'm 23, I have some time to figure it out. But I was like, at this rate, I'm not going to figure out how would I have a child here? How could I go on a date? How could I buy anything for my husband if I wanted to surprise him for something? I don't have extra. And I made the decision there, like, yo, I got to find a way out of this. I will not do this for 40 years. I cannot do this for 40 years, which is what started my investment journey with real estate. That's where I started because I was so broke. I had to do something so I didn't have to work forever. My husband, on the other hand, has never imagined a life where he wasn't working until he was 65. Has never fathomed a world where he wasn't going to a full-time job and working. I mean, I don't even think he thought that he could possibly get 2 or 3 months off. And that's with parental care. That's with like paternity coming up. And I guess paternity leave is relatively new, but he never fathomed a world where he could be done by 65 years old. So when we got together about 24, 23. He continued on his path of like, I want to work, I want to climb the ladder, I want to do more. And I continued along my path of like, I don't want to work, so I need to invest and buy property and manage and get out. And I did. I got out. So I retired at 28. My investments were enough to cover my salary and my contribution to the household. And so I said, okay, like I'm done then. I did what I was supposed to. His was not, and he's not at all bitter, frustrated. He likes to work. But the conflict comes now where we think about buying our next house. Because in my mind, if we stay small, I don't have to work. I don't have to have a job. I don't have to buy. My income is not required in order to qualify for the mortgage. We have equity in our current place. We have some cash saved. So if we just get another mid-size home, then we'll be fine. And for him, he's like, hey, if we upgraded, you wouldn't have to work much. But look at the difference we could have in terms of neighborhood, in terms of quality of home, in terms of backyard, in terms of future selves. Look at what we could have with a little more effort on your part. Conflict. I'm confronting a value that makes me uncomfortable because I worked so hard for this thing. But like I said before, with no basis, which is why I'm trying to do more of this so I can understand where is this coming from? You wanted to get out of working to not be underpaid, to not be exploited, but this is not that. Okay. And he is suggesting something that fits well within his values. So what do we do? And this goes back to episode 1 when I talked about the CLIP method, right? CLIP. The C for clip stands for confront the value. The value is I have spent a lot of time trying not to work, trying not to have a lifestyle that requires my constant hourly labor in order to support. My husband does not feel the same. So then I go to the next part of clip, which is L, locate the verse, because I'm confused, right? And I'm trying to live a more Christian lifestyle. I'm trying to find a source that I can base more of these decisions within. And the one that popped up the most was Ephesians 5. And Lord, when I saw it, I said, oh God, they gonna have me out here on social media talking about Ephesians 5. But this, I hope it's a safe space. I mean, if you're watching this far into the video, I'm hoping you are here to have like a constructive conversation and not just like light me up online. But Ephesians 5, 21 to 23, roughly 21 to 24 is what kept popping up. And I'm going to read it directly so that I'm not misinterpreting anything. Okay, so starting, I guess, at like 20, Ephesians 5:20 is where we kind of are. I'm in the ESV, and it says, giving thanks always and for everything to God the Father in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, submitting to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the church, his body. It is himself its Savior. Now, as the church submits to Christ, so as also wives should submit in everything to their husbands. I'm going to read another version because I thought it was really interesting. MSG. Out of respect for Christ, be courteously reverent to one another. Wives, understand and support your husbands in ways that show your support for Christ. The husband provides leadership to his wife the way that Christ does to his church, not by domineering, but by cherishing. So just as the church submits to Christ as he exercises such leadership, wives should likewise submit to their husbands. So that's ESV, MSG. C, confront the value. L, locate the verse. I, interpret. Now, I'm not going to lie to you. This is one of those verses that made me step away from the church the first time, or help me with my resistance to fully accepting, committing, trying my life as I think the Lord interpreted or encouraged, hoped, desired. Because what do you mean? What are you saying to me right now? What do you mean submit? And then I feel alone. And this is when I go back and talk about those identities colliding, because it feels like some people have no problem with this. It feels like some women genuinely want to give it all to their husbands, genuinely want to support and put their husband, this is my rib, put their husbands above themselves. And I didn't feel that. I've never felt that. Almost to a point where if you needed me, then you weren't strong enough. I remember feeling that way genuinely at 24 years old. If you needed my help to reach your dreams, then you weren't man enough to do it. That's just what it is. And this is where I mean sometimes that American, that personal, that is just Deandra, that might not be anybody else's, but in that Christianity collide, that like individual and that partner collide. But after finding the verse and after speaking to my other friends who are married, really understanding that I think I have a little bit of a backwards idea of submission. And it helps by hearing other people's examples. It also helps by reading other versions, other translations, where I think I've gathered that it's more about support, like the MSG, to hold up, to love. And as you do the church, I think is really a key part, because one of the reasons I want to follow, I want to commit more fully, is because I trust it. I trust that there is a greater purpose. I trust that there is a plan that will benefit me. And so a large part of submission or this value conflict is trust. And one of my friends asked me, she's just so wise. She said, has he given you a reason to distrust him in the past? And I fully was like, no. And not only has he not given me a reason to distrust him, he's given me very concrete reasons to trust him, and in terms of housing. Because remember, I didn't want to work. And my very first house was a 2-bedroom, pretty much could be a 3-bedroom, 1-bathroom townhouse. And growing up in New York, living in tiny little boxes, me getting my first townhome at like 23, it was bigger than any apartment I'd ever lived in. And the mortgage was $535 at that point. At that moment, I was done. At that moment, I could have called it. But this was before I met my husband. At that moment, I genuinely, in my heart, I was like, I never have to buy another piece of property again. My housing is $535. I'm finished. And I think I bought it for $85,000. So I owed 80. I was like, I could pay this off in 10 years? And be done. And my husband, we moved in. We had bought a separate house together, but he encouraged me to think bigger than that house. And I resisted. I resisted so much. And he encouraged me to think bigger, not because he wanted bigger, but because he knew I did. He's like, DeAndre, you've always talked about having a large backyard. You've always talked about growing plants and having chickens and having your bright red pickup truck. You can't have a pickup truck here. You had this vision of picking food from the garden and bringing it in the house and raising animals. And you can't do that here. This was a great start. And I resisted. Because it's not what I said, or it's going to be more expensive, or it wasn't my initial plan. And I also probably resisted because it wasn't coming from me. It wasn't coming from my thoughts. It was somebody else. It felt like this push and pull of values of somebody else saying, well, you should do something else. And I heard you should just work hard. And my friend reminding me that he has supported me out of reverence before, because we moved. We got a bigger place with the acreage, with the beautiful shutters. And I couldn't imagine how happy I was here. I couldn't imagine how thrilled I could be at the place, I guess, that I said I wanted to be. But he got me there. So if he has led me before in a way that was loving and giving and aware and thoughtful, then why would I resist that now? Which then leads to the P and clip of practice, of continuously to trust his actions and trust that this is all a choice. I think that's something that I also missed when I was 15 or 20, or hearing this verse or hearing bros talk about another podcast about submissive wives, is that I chose the title of wife, and could honestly have probably learned a little bit more about it before I chose it. But I chose this, and I trust my husband, and I trust myself. I trust the choice I made. And I have to keep stepping in that. And y'all are going to have to hold me accountable. And this is when I talk about the love of labor, the continuous work, because there can continue to be moments where I'm like, I don't know. I don't know if I like that. I don't know if that's what I want. But it's a forever process. And I'm excited for it. But I also know it's going to be really hard. And it's part of the commitment I'm making to myself, to our family, to God. And I think it's the right thing. And if it's not, then I will continue to learn and adjust but more importantly, make sure it is centered on a foundation that I think I do believe in for long term. But then how's that gonna deal with kids? Taking care of them or taking care of parents. And, I think, you know what? I think that's enough. I think that's enough for this week. So how about we follow up with more of how I can fit or do or should into other people's goals and dreams and how much I want to work or don't want to work for those. And again, if you have any situations, questions, or moments you'd like to discuss, don't hesitate to send me a message. And starting next week, I will include a few more of those in our video, in our time together. So thank you, and I will see you next week.